Now, US strikes in the Venezuelan capital of Caracas and Maduro's capture is not just an ideological friction or simply a war against drugs. There is a lot more at stake for the US. Remember, the US was once the biggest buyer of Venezuelan oil, but after US tightened sanctions against the country in 2024, this was replaced by deeper reliance on China, Russia, India, and Turkey. Oil sits at the heart of Venezuela's strategic importance and its long standoff with the US. Venezuela sits atop the world's largest oil reserves. According to international energy agencies and OPEC data, Venezuela's proven oil reserves stand at around 303 billion barrels, accounting for nearly 1/5 of global reserves. This places the South American nation ahead of Saudi Arabia, Iran, Canada, and Iraq. Oil has long been the backbone of Venezuela's economy. For much of the 20th century, petroleum exports generated the majority of government revenue and foreign exchange. Even under sanctions, crude exports rose in 2025 to over 900,000 barrels per day, according to OPEC. Venezuela also holds vast natural gas reserves. The U.S. Energy Information Administration estimates reserves of 5.5 trillion cubic meters and around 73% of South America's total, though years of underinvestment have limited production. The U.S. argues that oil revenues under Nicolás Maduro helped sustain repression and criminal activity. Venezuela, on the other hand, says that U.S. pressure, including the strikes, was aimed at wresting control of its oil and mineral wealth. Now, the capture of Nicolás Maduro was a culmination of a months-long pressure campaign by U.S. President Donald Trump's administration that drew condemnation from some international leaders. Maduro was on a warship bound for New York to face criminal charges. And let's now take a look at the legality of the U.S. action as reported by Reuters. U.S. authorities said that the Justice Department sought military assistance to apprehend Maduro, who had been indicted by a New York grand jury, along with his wife, son, 2 political leaders, and an alleged leader of an international gang. They were charged with crimes related to terrorism, drugs, and weapons. Attorney General Pam Bondi said that the defendants will soon face the full wrath of American justice on American soil in American courts. However, at a press conference, Trump blamed Venezuela for stealing U.S. oil interests and said Washington would take them back and planned to run Venezuela for a period of time without offering specifics. Experts in international law said that the Trump administration had muddled the legal issues by claiming that the operation was both a targeted law enforcement mission and the potential prelude to long-term control of Venezuela by the U.S. The U.S. Congress has the power to declare war, but the president is the commander-in-chief, and presidents of both parties have justified carrying out military action when it was limited in scope and in national interest. Now, as per an interview of Trump's chief of staff, Susie Wiles, if the president were to authorize some activity on land in Venezuela, he would need approval from the U.S. Congress. However, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the U.S. Congress was not notified before Saturday's operation. International law prohibits the use of force in international relations except for narrow exceptions, such as authorization by the United Nations Security Council or in self-defense. Drug trafficking and gang violence are considered criminal activity and do not rise to the accepted international standard of an armed conflict that would justify a military response, according to legal experts.